Jai Guru, everyone.
Jai Guru. And welcome to episode 9.5 of Autobiography of a Yogi. And we have the full team here today with Priyank, Mike, and Chris.
Hello.
Lovely to all be here together. So, should we just jump straight on in? Should we do it? I'm seeing some nods. Let's go. Okay, so we have a scene with Mukunda and Master Mahasaya, and they're walking hand in hand around his school, which I found quite curious. I know we've talked about on the episode before about, holding hands is quite customary in India, but I didn't know whether this is something that saints did often. Do you know if they do? Frank's nodding and shrugging.
No reason
Potentially.
not to.
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah. So there they were walking hand in hand. And Guruji says, "My joy was dimmed by the arrival of a conceited acquaintance."
I was going to say just about the walking hand in hand, like how amazing would that be with all the energy sort of flowing through them? They're magnets for God's energy. And, how blessed would you be just to be able to touch one of their hands, but the two of them together? I just wondered, wow, that must have been a real sort of coming together of this kind of magnetic flow of love, between them. So, not just like a sort of like a cold, wet, sweat, pammy hand or something that you sort of don't want to hold. It must have been such a warm embrace, and yeah, such a loving moment.
Yeah, that's very perceptive, Chris. Yeah. So yeah, he says his joy was dimmed by this arrival of this acquaintance, and Priyank had quite a lovely point on this.
Yeah, so it says dimmed, but that's just like a very light disappointment, as it were. It's not like a resentment or like any negative feelings. It's just saying that the elevated joy that they were in, holding hands and walking around, sharing that fellowship, was slightly lessened. And I think that's a really good lesson on being indifferent. It's not that you're not at all impacted or influenced by external events or your environment or your company that you keep, but that you shouldn't be so moved, like emotionally moved. And I remember in the recent monk's visit, we had brother quoted the Bhagavad Gita, and he said he was quoting like Krishna's indifference to both Duryodhana and Arjuna at that like really key juncture in the Mahabharata, where he essentially said to both of them, like, one of you can have my army and one of you can have me. And Arjuna, without even thinking about it, he said, "I'll have you." And Duryodhana was like, "Fantastic, I've got the best choice." But then later in the Bhagavad Gita, he actually says, "I am impartial toward all beings. To me, none is hateful, none is dear, but those who give me their heart's love are in me, as I am in them." So, Krishna in that with those people, he was impartial to like most evil of evil people, Duryodhana, and the most saintly of saintly people in his disciple Arjuna. So it's I know, long drawn out parallel, but I thought I thought it was a good one, seeing as we were there recently.
It's also a good lesson for us as well, isn't it? If Guruji always talks about having that inner stability. So if your joy cannot be diminished but just dimmed, that's a halfway house, isn't it? So yes, this person comes and burdens them with another lengthy discourse. We've had so many of these, haven't we? And I always look forward to them when they come, because they always come with a lot of comedy from Guruji's writing. They always make me laugh. Yes, so Master Mahasaya says to young Mukunda, "Oh, see, this man doesn't please you." And it's one of those highlighted moments where the saint is so in tune that nothing needs to be said or spoken. He just knows straight away.
Yeah, excuse my voice today a bit. It's a bit rough. But I was always wondering when I saw this. Here's a few scenes like this with Master Mahasaya that are a bit comedic, almost on purpose comedic. And I was always wondering what's the purpose of this. And I think part of it is just to show how they had an understanding between each other on a higher level, right? They were just navigating the world, and there's like people coming in, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were even, he said they whispered, maybe they were talking to each other telepathically or something. And I think Guruji also wants to make a point here to make this entertaining and get a chuckle out of the reader, because I don't know, maybe it's just me being European that I always see sarcasm everywhere. But when I read, for example, my joy is dimmed, that could mean much worse than it sounds.
and spellbound by his own monologue in everyday today modern language. So we might say someone likes the sound of their own voice, in the sense they can't stop speaking, and we've all experienced that. But it's a nice way of saying it, isn't it? Poetic.
And it's really funny.
Yeah.
Like, I laughed when I read it. It was so comical. But then Master Mahasaya goes on to say that, you know, he's spoken to Divine Mother about it, and she realizes our sad predicament, which is, I found hilarious. But also, you know, it goes to show the unity of them both. It's not just, oh, I see that you feel sad about this and you're in a predicament. It's a shared feeling of yeah. What do you think?
This the comedic element really vanished for me into this bit, where it got me thinking about the philosophical element of you know, Divine Mother, he's having a first person conversation with Divine Mother, and he's saying she realizes our sad predicament. But you know, the philosophical argument in my mind was, did she not create the predicament, or was she just a witness to it, as Mukunda and Master Mahasaya are? Because it's written here as if she was a witness, and she's surprised as well. But God, you know, God is all-knowing and omnipresent. So it's this whole thing about fate and free will, and here it's implied that it was like, yeah. What do you guys think, Mike?
I think it's funny, the perspective of a saint. You know, really bad things can happen. You can be sick, you can have relatives being on the verge of dying and stuff, and you go like, that's fine, we can fix that. But if somebody walks up to you and wastes your time by talking a lot, that's really terrible. It's like one of the worst things that can happen to you. I find that hilarious.
A kick in the shin is worse, isn't it, Mike?
I don't know. It hasn't happened in the book here, but
I was just pondering on your question, Priyank, about, you know, Divine Mother and wouldn't she know? But I guess it says she realizes our sad predicament, and I feel like I take that word as like she knows, rather than it's like a surprise of, oh, I've had this realization. And it brings home that point of, well, we have to ask for help to be given it a lot of times. And, you know, the saint having that conversation is that nudge and ask to the divine, isn't it, for some assistance, which she does give. And yeah, Mike.
I think that's a really good point as well, that we tend to go to Divine Mother, ask for help when some really bad things happen. But this is like an everyday situation, and they're still in tune with Divine Mother anyways, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, it's how Guruji says, you know, we should bring God into all seasons of our life, right? That includes the moments where you're caught in awful moments of people being spellbound by their own monologue. So yeah, she promises to help them, basically. And as soon as they get to the red house, he says that she's going to remind him of some urgent business. And yes, Guruji says his eyes were glued to the sight of salvation. And alas, when they got there, that exact event happened. He suddenly remembered some business and he didn't finish his sentence, he just left. And this section ends on peace descended on the assaulted air. I feel like it's very relatable. I feel like we've all been in these situations where we finally, have that moment of, the assaulted air now has some peace.
Do you think this assaulted air is worse than like really loud noises, like, I don't know, music or traffic, or like, when you're in a room with 1,000 people talking, they may all be talking about really good stuff, but it's still like an assault to your ears, especially if it's a small room with no windows and doors, so they're all closed. What do you think there's a difference between just one person speaking and the usual regular chaos of loudness that we may experience in our day-to-day lives?
Mike?
Maybe it's the noise, but also the vibe a little bit. He calls this person the egotist at some point, right? And he, I don't know, because his intention is just to go there and be heard by someone and just talk about something that they're clearly not interested in. And maybe that's an assault on their peace in some way.
Yeah, exactly. And then we find ourselves onto another sort of section in this section. I like this part of the chapter because it feels like it's sort of split into three and each has their own thing to give. So we find ourselves at a temple, and Guruji says that he was walking alone by the railway station, and he was standing by this temple, and there was this group of men with these drums and the cymbals, and they were violently reciting a chant. And he says how he silently stood criticizing them inwardly. Now there's quite a lot on this about being critical of others. Before we get there, Mike?
This reminded me a lot of when you walk through Oxford Street and you see Hare Krishna people walking through, right? It must have been a very similar scene, right? Or any busy street anywhere in a big city.
Yep, that is exactly the image that I had in mind, Mike. But I've seen lots of smaller procession or smaller organization with processions that are equally loud and violent in terms of their noise making and musical or lack of musical capability. But I always thought that as well, exactly what Guruji, what young Mukunda is essentially saying. But yeah, he's obviously been corrected a bit later. So this is I was in full sympathy. I still really am in full sympathy with Mukunda with this.
Yeah, we're going to see that he's not saying as much that the noise itself is what he's critiquing. So he goes on to say, what the element of devotion, right? So if you do see a lot of noise in the street, I don't think Mukunda at the time would have protested that. It's more, as Mike mentioned before, about the vibe. It's all about the vibe.
Undevotional,
exactly. And there's a really useful section in the Bhagavad Gita about criticism. It's chapter 16, verses 1 to 3. And we're going to read a bit of it out. This is Guruji's commentary on that section. So Priyank, would you like to start?
Sure. Absence of fault finding and calumny, abysmally, hastens one's spiritual evolution by freeing the mind from concentration on the weaknesses of others to focus wholly on the full-time job of bettering oneself. A person who, like a detective, is busy observing the shortcomings of others gets a false conviction of superiority either that he himself is free from those blemishes, or is otherwise qualified to appraise others. A critical person rarely perfects his own life. A habitual critic is like a fly that sits on the moral sores of others. A true devotee, like a bee, sips the honey of good qualities from the heats of his companions.
That's meant to be hearts. That was a typo.
Hearts.
Yeah.
Of the
Mike,
heart.
would you like to carry on?
Yeah. Jesus said, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with a measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Evil-minded disparagers, gossipers, and slanderers embrace the false notion that they can make themselves taller by cutting off the heads of others. On the contrary, there is no greater diminishment of character than in such behavior. Backbiters offend the gods in others and in themselves. The virtuous unassumingly uplift others along with their own rise to heights above the small meannesses of lesser fellow beings.
A person who takes pleasure in slander and backbiting never knows the happiness of helping others by wise counsel and encouragement. Renunciation discourages and angers the wrongdoer. In their hearts, most men are aware of their infirmities and moral sores. These cannot be healed by caustic irritants of castration, but only by the soothing salve of love. Nobody trusts those who spread evil instead of good, the gossips, the busybodies, the detectors of others' frailties. The Lord does not publicly expose anyone's shortcomings, but gives all men a conscience and the chance to correct themselves in the privacy of their soul. Jesus advised the would-be executioners of an adulteress when they were about to stone her, "He that is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone at her." The accusers, remembering their own transgressions, slunk away. Great-hearted persons are ever ready, like Christ, to free the sinner by love and to spare condemnation.
Lots to take away. I personally really loved the line, backbiters offend the God in others and in themselves.
Yeah, I really radiate with all of that, and I've had to work on myself because I'm quite critical. I've been trying to be less critical, but I also recall to that end I've been using that affirmation: as I radiate sympathy and goodwill to others, I open the channel for God's love to come to me, and divine love is the magnet that attracts all blessedness. And it seems to have been really working for me, that affirmation. That's the first time I've really tried to use affirmations, and I've been using it for about 2 years now. And I have noted the change in my own mentality, where I would instantly criticize before, whereas now I'm, holding it back, shall we say. So the first step is achieved. Now I need to get into the second step, where I can be sympathetic as opposed to just suppressing criticism.
I think I would correct you there, Priyank,
Go for it.
to your benefit, because I think you're doing yourself a disservice there. And just to highlight, but because maybe somebody else listening might be thinking the same thing. But what I took from this in general is that it's judgment. Being a critical person rarely perfects his own life. But I think you're level on your criticism of yourself and others. So in this instance, what I've read from the passages here is that one who surely merely focuses on the external world and not themselves. And never have I ever thought criticism from you levied towards me, for example, Brent, was said in the wrong light, in a judgmental light. So I think just to go back to it, what we're talking about, it's the vibe, it's the intent, it's the real, it's the energy, the love behind it that really counts as well. So it's a nice golden thread that we're pulling from the conversation.
And it feels like in this chapter that Mukunda's quite justified in feeling critical, because he goes on to say, it's because they're using the Lord's divine names so undevotionally and so mechanically. And Guruji does tell us, not to do our prayers mechanically, or it's very important. But even in that, we learn a lesson from Master Mahasaya, because in that moment, as he was thinking these thoughts about these men, Master Mahasaya comes and he rapidly approaches him, and he says, he asks, why are you here? And he ignores the question, but answers his thought, which is another reminder that he is very, very in tune and all-knowing, as he is in such communion with the divine. And he says, isn't it true, little sir, that the beloved's name sounds sweet from all lips, ignorant or wise?
That's beautiful. I don't think this is a lesson that really Yogananda had to learn in this incarnation, but it's just something he does for us again. Because it's so easy, right? You come, you see something, you don't feel the devotion instantly. Maybe also because they're outside in a busy street. Hard to display devotion in a setting like that. It's much easier when you're in a quiet temple somewhere. And then those kind of thoughts come, and that's why he describes it in this way, and also the reaction. And he doesn't mind sharing this from his own life, saying that he had those feelings coming in, but also the wisdom that Master Mahasaya gave him. And I think that's so useful, because like you guys said earlier, like in our own lives, this happens. Maybe this is often a first instinct that we have, but it's not the right one in this case, or most of the times.
Slightly different tangent from what we're discussing, but this miraculous appearance of Master Mahasaya in this instant, and he was rapidly approaching him. This is quite similar to when in Mejda, Lady Mahasaya, just appeared out of thin air to young Mukunda, and corrected him about some of the childish things that he was doing, and also with Bhagavati, when he was criticizing Lahiri Mahasaya or doubting him, then he appeared. So like this kind of you might call it an intercession. This one is obviously very, very miraculous and blatantly obvious, because you can see it in front of your eyes. But I was thinking how many times our guru must do this for us in the subtle realms without us being aware. When, for example, we're stopped in our tracks from going down a certain path, or if failure meets us, and then how often have we found that failure was actually a blessing, or we lose money, or we lose out on something that we really wanted, but then something better comes about. So like all these really, really not obvious ways Guru must intercede for our own spiritual progress. I was listening to a talk by Brother Achalananda just today, about faith, and he was saying, like it's amazing how much devotees miss out on because they don't ask. And it's not that you should ask for whimsical things, but what that really is talking about is asking for the spiritual glories, for God to be revealed to you, for you to develop intuition, for you to be less critical or judgmental, all these like spiritual things that we should ask for, but we don't. And if we do ask, perhaps the Guru will be more inclined to give them.
That's a really good reminder for all of us. Thank you.
I always get caught up between that and just praying for the gratitude, like God knows exactly what I need and bestowing it, sort of thing. So I never know how far should you go into either specific. Do you make it specific, or do you sort of make it general? Thanks for all the blessings.
But Chris, God knows that you need self-realization.
Yeah.
Do you not yet ask for that?
Yeah. But how does it come? Is it stepping stones, or is it?
No, but you don't. But you leave that to God, but you still ask for it, don't you? The stepping stone will be manifested in whichever way God reveals them to you. But the asking and setting your like direction is down to you, and that's one of the benefits of that prayer, I suppose.
I guess it also depends on what you want. I've seen Guruji write and monks counsel in the way that if you want to really achieve a certain thing in the world, you have to very specifically pray for that, right? But then Guruji often says, like, if you want something, pray for this or that, but it shows more faith to pray, you can anticipate all my needs, just sustain me according to thy will. And I feel like that's probably the right prayer for the right situation, but also, yeah, in the end of the day, Guruji knows best, I guess. So I think that I would hold that one higher than the other one in the end of the day.
The ego can only see it's like short-sighted in some sense, yeah. Like you're an intellect, rather than intellect, or get these things.
If we think about what were we praying for 10 years ago, do we really want those prayers to come true? Or?
You want that toy?
I don't want this anymore. Cancel.
I'm trying to think of a really good way to segue back into the chapter, but I feel like there's no good way otherwise to just cut throat, come back in with it.
You love a good tangent. Yeah.
We do. So yes, Mukunda and Master Mahasaya there, and Master Mahasaya.
Do you think we were all spellbound by our own monologues there, going away?
going away. I was sitting there thinking, how am I going to do this really smoothly? There was no smooth way.
We should have a code word for like spellbound.
Yeah.
We could use spellbound as a code word. You guys are a bit spellbound right now.
Spellbound. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, he's just given this very wise counsel to Guruji, and then Guruji explains how he puts his arm around him really affectionately, and that to me was really beautiful, because again, there's so many divine reminders here, but there's always that love, that pure love between the two, and it's the same pure love that the way that I absorbed it while I was reading is, it's the same pure love that I should be emanating to all, and that we all should be doing. It's no matter what someone is, we still have that divine love and friendship for them, and we can still display that. Priyank.
Yeah, and that loving arm comes after. He's almost a little bit rebuked Mukunda, isn't he? And he's saying that ignorant or wise, essentially, the God's name sounds sweet to the ignorant or wise. Ignorant or wise. So if in the previous example where we said, Krishna was saying that he's impartial, so he's impartial, and he would have put his arms around Duryodhana or Arjuna in the previous example. So which is quite nice.
Yeah, exactly. And then Guruji says that he found himself carried on his magic carpet to the merciful presence.
This is the first time I think he's referred to God as the merciful presence. I can't recall him doing that in other writings either. Could stand to be corrected. But why merciful presence here? And merciful and presence are both capitalized. Because if we're referring it to the previous sentence, he was saying essentially rebuking Mukunda, and he was saying that God loves everyone essentially, and I suppose that would be merciful. But it's a very beautiful way to describe God, or the presence of God, as the merciful presence. Chris?
Yeah, I read into it maybe that, as you guys said, it's not that Yogananda actually has these lessons to learn in this lifetime, that he's sort of put in on this play for us to learn from ourselves. So what he's doing is wrongly critiquing and judging, right? And so I observed then that Master Mahasaya was the one to put his arm around him in a very sweet and loving way, which is manifesting that aspect of God. But it is there manifested, and for us to, witness, because Mukunda would have, in this instance, made a mistake. So God's mercy is there for us, so that's how I read it.
Yeah. Mike?
We also hear in this chapter that Master Mahasaya is very much in line with the mother aspect of God, the divine mother aspect. And he doesn't want to teach as an authoritarian, but as a loving mother, right? And I feel like this is a perfect display of that, where he tells him what his critique, and then he gives him a hug.
That's beautiful. That's really lovely.
Do you think if the sort of opposite to that would have been true if he slapped him around the head, would it be a merciful presence?
No, wouldn't that be the Heavenly Father aspect?
That's the Heavenly Father, is it? Okay.
But this bit also reminded me about the power of good company as well. And, in this instance, the power of the company of Master Mahasaya literally took Mukunda to God, to the merciful presence. So I was looking up different things that Guruji had written about the benefits of spiritual company, and there was this really lovely piece on the SRF website from Guruji with different quotes. So we're going to read a few of those out in case it's helpful to anybody. Mike, would you like to start, please?
One second.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone else want to read it?
Yeah, I can read it. Those who wish to perfect themselves are urged by the masters to keep in close association with others of similar nature in order to strengthen their right aspirations.
We become like the people we mingle with, not only through their conversation, but through the silent magnetic vibration that emanates from them. When we come into the range of their magnetism, we are affected.
Oh, Priyank, you're on mute.
Why shouldn't you strengthen your own vibrations through fellowship with people seeking self-realization and by group meditation with them? This practice will fortify your own spiritual convictions. You will find that many seemingly insuperable barriers in your life will crumble and dissolve in the waters of meditation. Your devotion and love for God will commingle with devotion and love for others. Divine bliss will radiate from you, helping all persons you meet.
And it's certainly true, isn't it? I notice within myself when I'm around certain people, either the real self comes forth more or goes further away. And the power of company has certainly been really prominent in my journey. So I'm very grateful to be sitting here with you all, actually.
And we were grateful for you to sit with us as well. Re-energize our focuses, both here and in the center, through your fresh approach and attitude as well. But this, we had a workshop about this, didn't we, Lauren? About the importance of rubbing shoulders with the right people spiritually as opposed to in business.
What do you think they're different, spiritually and business? We should not try to rub.
No. I was using the, you know how, you know, in the metaphor in business where you're rubbing shoulders with the right people. That applies equally in your spiritual endeavors, it would appear, as from a workshop we had, in terms of enhancing your own meditations.
It was a very blessed opportunity to be there, you know, hearing the monks talk about that. Anyway, we digress slightly, but not too much. On to the next section of this chapter, and it feels like it kind of jumps to a new feel, and potentially even a different day. It says that this question came one afternoon, so from that I deduce perhaps a different moment in Mayic time. And Master Mahasaya asks Mukunda if he'd like to see some bioscopes. Yeah, Priyank.
Or the previous sentence was that, you know, Master Mahasaya took him on his magic carpet of merciful presence to the merciful presence. Perhaps it is from that state that he entertained showing him some bioscopes. And, you know, when he says the word bioscopes, although they would have certainly been speaking Bengali most of their conversations, I think this word would have been in English. He would have said Bengali words and then the English word bioscope. And I checked the Hindi autobiography as well, and it's the English word for bioscope. And also the, you know, later in the footnote we've got what bioscope means, and there's a rare definition which is a view of life that which gives such a view, and that's like a rare definition apparently, and hence Master Mahasaya's choice of words was peculiarly justified. So you're going to use it in a couple of different contexts. Yeah, Mike.
Do you speak any Bengali, or did you just go through the book and look for the word bioscope page after page?
In Hindi. So I just looked up this section.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Did they write bioscope in Devanagari or in English?
Yeah, in Devanagari. So it's like bioscope.
Oh, wow.
Like that.
Cool.
Yeah. Wow. We're very fortunate that you can read Hindi, Priyank, and able to delve into that side of things. So yeah, thank you. So Master Mahasaya asks this question, and Guruji says how this question was mystifying from, you know, this master who was reclusive, which is a little hint at his nature, not so much out in the world. And he said yes, and, you know, they briskly walked to the garden of Calcutta University, and there was a bench near a pond, and Master Mahasaya, I'm going to read this out. He said, "Let's sit here for a few minutes. My master asked me to meditate whenever I saw an expanse of water." And then Priyank, what does he go on to say next?
So he says, its placidity reminds us of the vast calmness of God, as all things can be reflected in water, so the whole universe is mirrored in the lake of the cosmic mind. Yeah.
And then he ends with, "So my Guru Deva often said." And there's so much in this seemingly tiny paragraph. The first to me that jumped out was, he's still following his master's instructions. He's still being faithful to his guru. And that's exactly how we should be. It doesn't matter what level of consciousness you are. All the great ones still followed their master right until the end. And, it even goes in those moments, those seemingly smaller moments of, oh, I've seen some water, I'm going to meditate by it because that's what master told me to do.
I found that interesting because didn't they establish earlier that he was not his guru? So, but he still calls him Guru Deva.
No, this is Master Mahasaya speaking about his guru, Ramakrishna
Oh, I
Paramahansa.
see. I thought he was. I
my
thought he was
Gurudeva also.
following. Oh yeah. No,
So
I
this is
thought
Master
he was
Mahasaya.
following Master Mahasaya to meditate by the pond. Okay.
But thank you for bringing that up, Mike.
Yeah,
because
someone else
I've got a section. No, because I've got a section from the Gospel of Ramakrishna Paramahansa that he was actually referring to. So this is he's now deduced this kind of philosophy of looking out into the expanse of water. But I've got the exact scenario where Ramakrishna talked about it when he was with him. So, but firstly, this expanse of water is quite a cool concept. But I think we all like looking at water, don't we? Or the sky. And there's literally cosmic chants that are specifically for both of those things. I am the sky, mother, or I am frozen sky, or I am the bubble, make me the sea. So there's these really lovely chants. But he in Gospel of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Ramakrishna Paramahansa answers the question how a Gnana Yogi meditates on the water or the sky. Gnana is one who's seeks wisdom, yoga through wisdom, and or the intellect. And he says, Ramakrishna says, water is everywhere. All the regions above and below are filled with water. Man, like a fish, is swimming joyously in that water. In real meditation, you will actually see all this. Take the case of the infinite ocean. There is no limit to its water. Suppose a pot is immersed in it. There is water both inside and outside the pot. The Jnana Yogi sees that both inside and outside there is nothing but Paramatma. Then what is this pot? It is I consciousness. Because of the pot, the water appears to be divided into two parts. Because of the pot, you seem to perceive an inside and an outside. One feels that way as long as this pot of I exists. When the I disappears, what is remains. That cannot be described in words. Think of the infinite Akasha and a bird flying there, joyfully spreading its wings. Its joy is limitless. The devotees listened with great attention to these words about meditation. Lots of beautiful elements that Guruji also has made his own, hasn't he? Like, when this I shall die, then when will I know who am I? And lots of others.
I'm the bubble, make me to see.
Yeah, I am the sky, mother, I am the sky.
Guruji talks a lot about water, doesn't he? I mean, it's no surprise.
Waves.
As, waves, the ocean.
Yeah.
It was by Encinitas, so that may have been some inspiration with the Pacific Ocean. Mike.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned Encinitas, because Guruji's first temple in the US had, instead of an altar, it had just a window out on the Pacific Ocean. And there's something magical about water. And even if you're not spiritual, people love water, right? Like, look at real estate prices next to a lake or next to the ocean. They're always much higher than elsewhere. So there's definitely something that is very pleasing to the body or the mind or both.
Or the soul.
The soul, yeah, definitely. Guruji actually has some endless things to say about the ocean. but I picked out 2 for us to read today. Just 2.
You can count.
I can. I was looking at my laptop screen, you see, and there was lots of things going on. Oh, hang on. Chris, would you like to read the first one about the wave?
Yep. The wave is the same as the ocean, though it is not the whole ocean. So each wave of creation is a part of the eternal ocean of spirit. The ocean can exist without the waves, but the waves cannot exist without the ocean.
Mike?
If the little wave knew that behind it is the great ocean, it would say, I am the ocean. You should realize that just behind your consciousness is the ocean of God.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's nothing to add. That's the beauty of Guruji's words. You don't need to add anything. You just need to absorb. Yeah, Mike.
I think water might also be used often in this way because it's a good metaphor of, you take a glass of water and you put it in a pitcher and you don't know anymore which of that water was in the cup before. It just mixes perfectly. And I'm probably in the same way when the soul merges back into God, then it will be like that as well. That might be one reason why it's often used.
Yeah, and it's used by so many different people. Even as we see here, Guruji's talking about it. So is Master Mahasaya. They're all using these, ocean analogies. And I just wanted to have another nod just to round this a little bit off, because Master Mahasaya nods to his guru again and says, so my Guru Deva often said. And it's that it's going back to that following of the guru. And there was a line that I read from the SRF website. It's called The Role of a Guru in One's Spiritual Search. And it said, he who faithfully follows a true guru becomes like him, for the guru helps to elevate the disciple to his own level of realization.
Very nice. And here he's Master Mahasaya refers to his guru as Guru Deva. The footnote says describes Guru Deva as divine teacher, the customary Sanskrit term for one's spiritual preceptor. Deva, God, combined with Guru, illumined teacher, indicates profound reverence and respect. I have rendered it in English as simply master, in quotes. And so this is Paramahansa Yogananda writing a translation for Guru Deva as master. And the official SRF line for what master, because master is quite an imposing word for a newcomer to our centers and services, but we obviously use it very often in master's service and master this and master that, master's love. For someone in this modern age, a master is not a very kind of friendly word. So SRF's official line for the definition of why we use master is because not that he is your master, it is that he is a master of himself and is able to be in touch with God. But Guruji himself has translated this as he's said it's actually, the word is Guru Deva, which is a much more beautiful translation for what master, why we use the word master. And I think we should, well, I'm certainly going to, whenever someone asks me why you're saying the word master, I'm going to say it's a translation of Guru Deva, and Deva means God combined with Guru, the illumined teacher. I think that's much nicer.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Priyank. Thank you. So yes, they've meditated on the water, and it seems for a short time, because Guruji says soon we entered a university hall, so perhaps they weren't there for a long time. And And there was this lecture going on. I'm going to sort of condense this down slightly, this story. But if you want to read in super detail, definitely read the book. So we hope. So yes, there's a lecture going on, and Guruji says it was abysmally dull. And they had, these slides with illustrations, which are, very uninteresting. And, he's thinking, he's getting quite impatient, but he doesn't want to show it on his face because he doesn't want to hurt Master Mahasaya's feelings. And he doesn't want to reveal the boredom, But you can just picture this scene. Master Mahasaya, leans towards him confidentially. So it's written here and says, I see you don't like this bioscope. Yeah, I've mentioned it to the Divine Mother, and she's in full sympathy with us both. So, again, it's like he's always in that communion, isn't he, with the Divine Mother, and he's always in union with Mukunda's thoughts. Like, he knows exactly what's happening. So yeah, she's in full sympathy with us both. So I'm guessing Master Mahasaya also feels equally bored by this, and he relays that the Divine Mother has said the electric lights will now go out and won't be relit until we have a chance to leave the room. And as he finished the sentence, the exact thing happened. The hall went into darkness. It was plunged into darkness. And, the professor who was speaking was, in a bit, was a bit astonished. And the two, Master Mahasaya and Mukunda, had, crossed the threshold. They're already out the door, and they glanced back, and suddenly everything again was illuminated. So how amazing! Literally within that moment of him finishing that sentence of relaying the message from Divine Mother, it happens.
It is quite amazing. And this style of narrative of Divine Mother being in sympathy with us, and then some set of circumstances happening so it resolves the predicament of the young Mukunda and Master Mahasaya. I was so inspired by this that I thought when I was in India, when I was reading the Autobiography of a Yogi, I thought let me look for these kind of instances in my own life. So I journaled in quite minute detail, and I made like a really, really big deal about the most minute coincidences that would happen, that would conspire to make things work out the way they needed to. So I've got like a whole book of stuff, really minute stuff, nothing insane like we're about to read in the next episode, but things like this. I've got loads of lots and lots of examples, and then I sent like it's literally maybe 100 pages of stuff, like a diary, and I sent it to my mum after I finished it, because I was away for quite a while, and she there's no way she was able to read my English because it was such bad handwriting, but I think she enjoyed the present all the same.
Oh, that's lovely that you send that to your mom. It's really sweet. Journaling and writing down what we experience. I think one of the monks actually recommended it in one of a talk once, specifically talking about spiritual experiences, writing them down so we can relive them again and keep them ever alive in our consciousness. And there is definitely something to that. So
very important. Yeah.
Although sometimes, how can one put into words some experiences? But we try.
But it's better to do that than to rely on your memory of that. Because your memory is fickle, so you may just completely forget about that instance. But having this here, you'll be able to use this as the catalyst to go back and remember, even if the words aren't perfect. You can, say where you were, what you were doing, what the circumstances were, and then that should hopefully take you back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, journaling like this is amazing, especially if you do it like Priyank just mentioned in a positive way. Like you have like a very positive experience, because I feel like once you write it down, it becomes more real, and it goes somehow also into a different compartment of memory that is more lasting. And when I sometimes read some of my old journals, I have to laugh a lot because I'm like, I remember that. So, because you don't just remember what you wrote, you also remember what you were thinking when you wrote this, right? It becomes a memento of time, and that's why it's great. I just wanted to go back quickly to the scene because I was like, if I'm in a lecture and I don't like it, I just leave, right? But that's not what he did. He didn't want to make a scene like that, right? He wanted to be very respectful. So Divine Mother had to turn off the electricity for the whole university for them to be able to leave. I found that a really nice detail, that they were so respectful of that.
I wonder on this point about, let's say, the conversation that Master Mahasaya would have had with Divine Mother, and what you perceive how this could have happened. Because I think it's easy to think it's a literal conversation, how we are talking now, like Divine Mother would have been manifested in some way to Master Mahasaya, communicating with words, but it's such a slow way to transfer information, this way that we're communicating, as opposed to intuitive knowing. So Yogananda talks about, developing your intuition is very, very powerful thing that we should be doing. But actually, you might get confused if you take it too literally, this sort of conversation as such, and wait for words to be spoken to until you really listen. But actually, I wonder what you guys think, but my impression is that it's so much more subtle. It's like an unpacking of a parcel of information given to you that's something, this will occur, and it's your ability to intuitively unpackage that parcel. And so you have to work with that. It's not going to come as clear as this, maybe my words to you now might come. It's going to be something a lot more subtle, this intuitive knowing. And that is the conversation that God is having with us all the time, but we just overlook it all, constantly. So yeah, just wondered what your perception of this moment that Master Mahasaya had with Divine Mother, because it could be, as a child, like, a child might say, oh, Divine Mother, I want her to talk to me, and they would be expecting these words to come out verbatim as we would talk, but maybe not.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Hard to know, yeah.
God is very personal, isn't he? So we all speak with him so differently, and he responds so differently to each of us because we are his different expressions, right? So, it might be that, some people speak to God like a child does, and other people have that more of a knowing sense. That's the beauty, isn't it?
It'd be great if it was a childlike, because it'd be so much easier if you just heard this booming voice all the time talking to
you. So that's actually a good note to end it on. But Priyank, yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to extend this journal discussion just a little bit. I remember I told you a few weeks ago that I picked up this really old diary, 1994, and it was getting thrown away, and I thought I can find a good use for this. So I said to you guys that I was going to write just on each of the days of the year, I was going to write something inspirational that Guruji had given me through the teachings of that day or that week. And then I also thought, okay, last time I did this, my handwriting was so appalling, the book that I gave my mum. So my sister gave me a calligraphy pen, and here is my first attempt at calligraphy. So I've had to go at scripts. So you can't really see that.
For those who are listening, it is actually quite neat. That's impressive.
Much neater than my regular handwriting. So then I'm going to fill, hopefully, the rest of the book with equally pretty, very nice Guruji's quotes and sayings.
Beautiful.
That'd be very illuminating as well, I'm sure. And you just, flick to one, it will probably come up exactly what you need in that moment. as it always does. Yeah, the beauty of the living word. So, unless anyone else has any other points to add or anything like that, we will end the episode here. Thank you all so much for being here today and for sharing all your insights. And looking forward to next time.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru, everyone.
Jai Guru.